spending less.
You're clearly in no uncertain circumstances. You're a minority on the court, and you're kind of in an alamo position coming in. While I would love for the majority of the court to be Republican, unfortunately, you're coming into a situation where you're the sole Republican on the court in all practical purposes. So the question I have is, how are you going to work with the Democrats? Because you're going to have to. There's just no doubt that you have to be strategic in advancing Republican policy in a very, very clear minority of the court. So how are you going to help advance the issues that are important to us in a way where you can still work with the rest of the commissioners and county judge?
Well, I think it depends what you consider to be Republican priorities, because as of right now, working with the other commissioners to achieve whatever priorities those may be has not really achieved us anything other than the fact that we as Precinct 3 taxpayers just continue to pay more and more into the budget and get less and less back. But at the same time, there's always room to work. And a lot of that stuff, as we've come to find out and looked into it, a lot of that stuff is done. Commissioner's Court only takes up 4 hours of every week. There's 60 more hours that can be worked. I think the big way is to be pragmatic in the way you approach the situations with the solutions that you have. But to come up with those solutions, you have to be engaged within the community. And that's where I feel with my business experience, I have men and women that work for me who live on the far east side of Precinct 3. I have men and women who live with me on the far south side of Precinct 1. I have a pulse on what their issues are and where those issues are arising and what the solutions are. And those are things where I think you can speak with the other commissioners, regardless of whether they're Republicans or Democrats, and formulate. I hate to use the word, because right now that's what it is. It's just a good old boy system. You give me what I want, and I'll give you what you want. The only problem is Precinct, sometimes it's better to just be in the minority but be right. And that's where I go back to the first question is, at least we can advertise that we're right. And we can say, look, we stood for our principles. We stood for you, the taxpayers. We stood for you, the working residents. And we lost. But we can say these are the people that we lost to. And they're the ones taking the money from you.
Chris, what kind of NGOs or nonprofits do you think should or shouldn't be funded for commissioners' budget?
I would, at this point right now, after looking into most of those NGOs are either used to aid and abet illegal immigration here in Bexar County. The biggest thing is we give all this money that goes into these discretionary spending funds that comes from Precinct 3 and ends up in Precinct 2's discretionary spending fund. If you look at those charities that they give those monies to, most of them have no verifiable results. And so all that sends to tell me is that they're taking our tax dollars up here in Precinct 3 and they're just building a war chest through a charity that should they ever really get challenged, they're going to have our money to spend to fight us. So at this point right now, I think we need to leave more money in our constituents' pockets, in our business pockets, in our business owners' pockets, and then they can be charitable for the causes that we need here in town, the way it was done 50 years ago.
Maybe not because inflation's killing it, but why don't you explain what that is?
Well, yours isn't as big as theirs is. And I'm not quite certain it's, because that was where a lot of the stuff with Tommy Calvert came up during the budget cycle this past year. And it was hard to look at, and I can't remember the term, it's somewhere in the neighborhood of $25 million. And if you look at what that money goes to every week, it's to Big Mama's Charity. I mean, most of that money, from what I've seen looking through the agendas every week, is used to go to these NGOs. And there's really, it ends up on the agenda. There's never any pushback against where Justin Rodriguez spends his, or Rebecca Clay Flores, or Grant Moody, wherever they spend that. The problem is, in my opinion, that is the slush fund money that's going to the NGOs that's causing a lot of the problems that we have. So I personally would rather have that money go back to the taxpayers.
And I think to that point, from what I can tell, you've taken some exception to the current commissioners handling of issues in similar form with some sewage issues, which I don't think there's not 100% that I know of these. But these issues, but my understanding is that there was private settlement on some of these issues that, he's also wanting to use some of those discretionary funds to kind of see that through. There seems to be a $2 million gap here to solve those sewage problems in Timberwood Park. If you can, please explain why you believe that's.
Well, one, they're not discretionary funds that are being used. They're ARPA funds that have been reallocated.
And excuse me, I may not know.
Well, no, and one, I think.
Just wanting to allocate some of those funds to kind of fill that gap.
Well,
That's what the issue you have with that is.
when did it become government's role to shore up settlements and private lawsuits? Is my main question. This isn't socialism. So at the end of the day, and I don't know if anybody heard Grant Moody and I on Jack Riccardi today, one, this is where I'm talking about being engaged. This is where I'm talking about being pragmatic. So one, as I said on that radio interview today, the county has been everything but transparent on all that stuff. And Andrea Drush puts that in her report. And we've sent open records requests in. Everything gets pushed for an AG ruling. They won't release anything. So no one actually knows the details of how this sewer line is going to make it to these houses. So there's 76 houses that were built in Timberwood Park. They're uncharacteristic to the rest of the neighborhood. They're 1/8 acre lots. They're on a septic field. All the houses go to one tank, and then they have a leach system. The problem is there was more houses built than the system was originally permitted and designed for. So they've had issues since day one. Fast forward to 2019, the HOA sues the builder and the developer. Fast forward to 2024, we reallocate ARPA funds to shore up the settlement that they reached in mediation, that apparently the county was integral in the mediation process. So one, that to me just doesn't fly. It's a private neighborhood. It's a private septic system. It should be the developer's dollar to go to fix it. The other issue I have is that our commissioner is a business partner with this developer in a private airplane and never disclosed it for us. That he says he told the other commissioners, well, that's fine, but it's not their tax dollars being used to fix it. Because at first they wanted to use county tax dollars, and the residents in Timberwood said, well, no, you're not going to use our money to fix a developer's problem. So then they came back and tried to justify it and say, well, we're going to use ARPA dollars. Well, where do the ARPA dollars come from? I think we all in here, we all pay federal income taxes, don't we? So it's still our money. So what can I definitively say that I would have done had I been in that situation? Well, the one thing that Grant Moody wouldn't answer today is, did he drive out there and actually, one, look at that septic field? Because I stood in the middle of that septic field while I was on the phone with Jack Riccardi and watched 7 or 8 deer eat. My boots are still pretty clean. As well as the fact that all those houses in there originally sold for $210,000, with the last house selling for $477,000 a couple months ago. So obviously we're not dealing with this egregious environmental issue that they've made it out to be. If you went out there and you looked at where that area is located, and you look at the Pate Dawson map of how they propose to run that line, they're going to bury a sewage line in the middle of the very creek that they want to protect. So if something ever happens, you're going to get 3 times the amount of sewage that goes in that creek. But not only that, there's a culvert bridge on Timberline that's out for months at a time, so the entire neighborhood's going to have to go around there. They're going to trench. I'm in this business. Those trenching machines are 14 feet wide. They need an additional 10 feet for the trenching to come out. Then you need a guy with a loader to push the trenchings up and get them out of the way. Then you're going to have trucks coming in with the pipe and with the gravel and all that. That creek is about from here to that black divider there. And then they're in somebody's backyard. And so my point was, convince me that you're not going to tear up the entire neighborhood, to which we can't get an answer for. So do I think we should use those dollars to get back to your question? Not in instances like this. If we can reallocate money like that, that money should have been used to fix low water crossings in Helotes and Gray Forest where people are actually getting killed.
I've got a 2-part question. I've got a 2-part question about election integrity. So one is, what part can you play to ensuring our elections are conducted with transparency and integrity? And then adding to that, when it comes to selecting a new election administrator upon the retirement of the current administrator, what criteria will you use for this process if elected?
So I met with Melinda and some other people who are involved in election integrity because that was not something that I was overly familiar with and I wanted to educate myself further on. And the one question that I asked, and I still need to educate myself further on, is I said, what would be the main priority if we were able to get something done? And I believe that is for us to return back to precinct voting as opposed to countywide voting. How do I think that is doable? This goes back to working with everybody else. One thing people aren't familiar with is that there's a difference between a precinct road system and a unit road system. Bexar County is one of the few counties in Texas that's a unit road system. The remainder of the counties are precinct road systems. The difference there is we have a county manager, we have a county roads administrator, we have Dave Wegman from Public Works, and basically we have a massive bureaucracy that exists between the voters and the county commissioners, where, if you hop over into Medina County, each commissioner is responsible for the public projects, and they are more, in my opinion, liable to their voters. They have to decide which jobs are going to get worked on. They have to allocate the money. They have to oversee them. They have to make sure the job doesn't go over budget. It's a lot more hands-on job. Now, that also lends itself to cronyism, which I have personally seen being in the business I'm in. But having listened to some of the stuff that's been said by some of the other county commissioners, and I don't think for the right reasons, I think we could make a push to take Bexar County back to a precinct level road system, which I think a segue into that to go along with it, and it would make sense for everybody, would be to go back to precinct voting. That would be how I would approach that one topic that was told to me is the most important one for election integrity right now.
Well, let's get a drink real quick.
I've never done one of these, so I don't know whether I should look at y'all or who
It's
I'm looking
rapid
at.
fire. We understand. I've noticed, again, as a potential constituent of yours, you came out early in the campaign very negative against our current county commissioner. I received many of the things on social media, and my question is, I think we need a degree of consensus and leadership and bringing people together. And I understand that campaigns may be different than, how you lead. And so my question is how are you going to reconcile that? You come out very negative against our current county commissioner. How are you going to bring consensus, especially understanding that you're going to be in the minority on the court? And, how do you convince me and the rest of the people in the room that you can be the leader that we need, knowing that you came out very negative to begin with? And how are you going to reconcile that going forward?
You say negative, I say truthful.
Well, yeah, and I agree with you. I think the perception of negative comes when the primary process is bypassed, because at the end of the day, that's where everybody's vetted. And so Grant Moody, through his own fortune, made it to there. Obviously with the way the precinct lines are drawn, it was an easy general election. And at the end of the day, we're not being negative. Our issue is with Grant Moody's record on the issues. And everything that we've put out has been fact-based and supported.
Chris, I'm going to ask you about property taxes, and I'm going to bring CPS and SAWs into this too. So both the property tax burden and then also what CPS and SAWs deal with, because both of these things end up being essentially taxes on citizens in the county. So give us your perspective on the property tax burden that exists currently. What are things that could actually be done to alleviate some of the burden on homeowners of what property taxes become? And then how would you handle CPS and SAWs? What are the things that you think the county can do to deal with CPS and SAWs and their increasing rates?
Well, I think first and foremost is we need county commissioners that don't pass $3 billion budgets. And the reason I say that is because we're sitting on, and again, it's very hard because the county is not transparent. That's the number one issue I have. Their last quarterly investment report was put out in December of 2022. So we don't even know where they have $48 million of our money invested. So the spending, we're going to have to reconcile at some point with almost $2 billion in debt, the desire to provide property tax relief, and the desire to maintain spending levels. And the problem where I see that is we're doing what they do in Washington, D.C. And I'll segue into that with take this Bexar County Health District property tax or homestead exemption they gave us. Okay, that sounds great. Historic $70 million tax break, which comes out to about $110 for the average homeowner, which the commissioners or the appraisal services will do everything they can to wipe that out as soon as possible. But while giving you that $70 million tax break, simultaneously, they let the university health system take on hundreds of millions of dollars in new debt to increase capacity, which a lot of that capacity is going to be used for illegal immigrants. We all know it. I mean, that's who's there right now. So the push, I think, to reduce property taxes is we're going to have to reduce the spending. That I just don't see any other way around it than reducing the spending. Because if we don't reduce spending, we're going to have to increase the debt. When it comes to CPS and SALs, one thing I've stated numerous times is there are tens of thousands, not hundreds of thousands of customers that are in the service area of CPS and SALs, but don't live in the city. So we have no representation. So one, I truly feel the county needs a seat at the table on the board of CPS and SALs. Because I find it preposterous that CPS remits $436 million, but the county gets nothing out of that. And at the end of the day, as you, the ratepayer, are you getting the best deal? But most importantly, why I feel that seat is important is how do they spend the money? The money, obviously, we went through Snowmageddon, we went through, all these cataclysmic events that we've never went through prior to the past couple years. Is all that excess money, we don't need to be offering welfare programs where small percentages of the payers don't have to pay, and we pay a fee every month to uplift, or I think it's called uplift. That money needs to be allocated. We need to be building out infrastructure. We need to be expanding. We need to be weatherizing. We need to put the money back into the infrastructure, and we definitely don't need to be shutting down the coal plants. And I think if we have a seat on the board, assuming that we get the right person on that seat, which I will grant you probably wouldn't be me, but hopefully at least then as commissioners, we would have sway over that individual.
So we have a growing community of much of which will, in terms of the growth of Bexar County in our community is going to be outside the city of San Antonio. So there's a huge need structure standpoint on how we are going to, of that development and growth and opportunity, and obviously the county being a huge part of the funding for our infrastructure. And I will say this is somewhat of a shameless question because I'm in trucking as well. So infrastructure lives very closely, to me and the needs of my company, but also myself as a citizen of this community. My question to you is, what are your top 3 to 5 priorities in terms of infrastructure? Because, as a potential county commissioner, infrastructure and infrastructure funding is a huge part of our budget in the county. So what would you say are, in your opinion, the most essential operational needs from an infrastructure standpoint for our community, and what would you prioritize in that effort?
Well, the first thing is nobody can live without water. So we have to get the water situation under control. And I don't personally believe that we have a shortage of water as often stated around here. I think we have a lot of corruption within our water. So that would be one thing, is to work with SALs and the various CCNs and familiarize myself more with that process to ensure that the water infrastructure is there and the pump stations, everything is weatherized, the generators work, everything like that. The next would be sewer. And, there's been, we'll bring up the Timberwood Park issue, Guajalote Ranch, which, they wanted to dump 4 million gallons of treated sewage a day in Lotus Creek. I mean, here in Precinct 3, which would be the only infrastructure projects I would be worried about, would be to reconcile where can we really keep expanding to, and to what extent can we do it, given the Edwards Aquifer and given the recharge zone. I mean, I make my living in development, so I want us to develop and I want us to grow, but I want us to grow intelligently and with a plan that won't create a set of problems we're going to have to deal with 20 years down the road. Obviously, where we live in Precinct 3 on the north side, I think we all drove around town with the rain last week. And it's little things when it comes to infrastructure. I noticed where TxDOT, even though that's TxDOT, as the county commissioner, I would still drive through that job and see things, and I'd have no problem calling the TxDOT inspector and say, what do you think you're doing? Between Blanco Road and Huebner, they poured all this in-place barrier there, and they put no drainage whatsoever. So you literally had 15-foot deep water along the access road for just purely an oversight or a lack of management. And that's where, when you talk about infrastructure, I think it's being aware of all the infrastructure projects, not just the ones that the county's doing, that will really help us build out efficiently and effectively.
Chris, and we're going to try to end tonight a little early because you've done a great job, and we have another debate to get to. So why don't you close us out and tell people, just in closing, if there's anything that you don't feel like you've been able to cover, any issues we didn't on that you wanted to share with everybody, but we're just going to give you 3 minutes here to close out.
Yeah, and if you don't mind, tell us a little bit about you as well. Sound like you have a lot of background in business. I'd love to learn more about what you do in business and in that closing.
So I graduated from A&M, and 2012, I went to work at Frost Bank as a credit and equities analyst. I thought that was the route I wanted to go down, and then I had to sit in an office for 8 hours a day, and I was like a dog that's been in a kennel for 6 months. I just couldn't take it. At that time, the Eagleford Shell was raging, and there was something about that was very attractive to me. I liked the fast pace, the take the risk, the commerce, and everything, as well as you're contributing to American energy independence. I had a customer that I dealt with at Frost that was independently wealthy through other business, that he had 10,000 acres in Runge, so you can imagine how much more wealthy he became. And through that, he decided, he was in the trucking industry too, that he wanted to be the king of the oil field. And so he partnered with some guys, and I ended up, the guys he partnered with, they had so much money coming in, nobody was managing the books. And I said, how are we, your accounts are continually overdrawn $200,000-$300,000. I was like, I know you had the money. And so he finally said, well, I'll pay you a lot of money if you'll leave Frost and you come make sure they don't get over. I said, good deal. So I left Frost, and 2 weeks after I left, oil went from $97 a barrel to $43 a barrel. So I went from going to be a controller of sorts to now I was a salesman, a dispatcher, a general manager, everything short of being the janitor, which I might have even done that. I worked so many hours I couldn't remember. I ended up getting the whole thing stabilized. We lost a lot of business. I spent a lot of time in Houston, picked up enough business. I got everything stabilized, got assets sold off. I got the partnership split, which, part of it went through bankruptcy. And I've always told people that I think a big part of my success has been, if you really want to know how to make a business work, you should put it out of business before you do it. So you kind of see all the tricks of the trade.
We don't always want to do that, Chris,
I
but
know.
I
Do it on somebody else's dime. And so from there, there was nothing much left for me. I knew they were going to eventually sell all the assets off. And so a lot of guys that had worked for us as independent owner operators, I asked them, I said, what are y'all going to do? And they said, well, we're going to go buy aggregate trailers, and we're going to haul in the highway and new residential and commercial construction business in San Antonio. And they said, by the way, why don't you go get to work and pay us every week, and you figure out how to get paid from those guys to give you the work. And I said, okay, well, we'll do that. I had no idea what I was doing. Well, we started off just hauling material from the local quarries and that stuff to our job sites. But somehow I managed $1 million my first year. By my second year, I had done $3 million. And from there, we got close to $5 million. And I started noticing that I needed to differentiate myself from the other companies and offer another product line. And so that's when we got into our own material pits, where we dig what they call select fill, which is an alternative to the stuff that comes out of the quarries you see along 1604. And we have had our hand in every project in Precinct 3 and the largest projects in Bexar County. If something gets delivered to your door from Amazon, we put the building is built on top of my material. If you drive over a new bridge on I-10 on either side of town, that material either came from one of my pits or came out of the back of my trucks. It's been very rewarding. I really care about the guys that started with me, stuck with me, and that are still with me. And what's been most rewarding is seeing how a lot of these guys who started with one truck and trailer, and I would talk to them on the phone at 4 a.m, and it was 28 degrees outside, and they were changing an airline to get on the road. A lot of those guys now, they have 3, 4, 5 trucks and trailers, and guys working for them, they still work under me. And one of the guys, he's building a $600,000 house, and he told me, he was like, I never thought I'd move out of the apartment I lived on in Southwest Military Drive. And I just don't feel that our city and our county everybody always says, oh, if I had to start today, I wouldn't make it. But I see it because I see the people that are trying to start and they're doing the same things. They're putting in the hours, they're taking the risk, and they're not making it. And a lot of that, I believe, is because of our local city and county government. And that's what I hope to get in there to change. And I think that's the best thing for dealing with the other Democrats on the court is the happier they can make their constituents, the longer they get to stay elected. So,
Thank you, Chris.
Chris.
Well, we're moving right along, and I've never met a crowd or a group of people that hated to see a meeting end early. So we're headed in that direction. Joe Garza asked me to announce that we have these "In God We Trust" plaques available at the Republican Party Bear County site in the back there. So if anybody's interested in that, please step over, and they've got them for you. Now, before we move on to taking a break, I think it's become difficult for us to really run the bar and collect funds. So we're going to open the bar, and unless somebody can step up and say there's a better answer, because we've got plenty of donated stuff. So when we take a break, please help yourself. We've got beer, wine, and cocktails. And then in the back, we have tacos, soda pop, and water. But before we do that, I want to thank Chris Coons for being here earlier. She's not here to stand up, but she is running for chair of the Republican Party of Bear County. She had another event she needed to attend before we got to this point. So I wanted to thank Chris Coons for her attendance. Second, Jared Stubbs, would you please stand up and just your name and what you're running for?
Good evening. My name is Jared Tubbs. I've been here in the precinct for quite a while, 16, 18 years, and I'm running for Bear County Constable, Precinct 3.
We've also been honored to have Brendan Herrera join us running, and he will tell you who he's running for or against or whatever.
Thank you, Jeff. My name is Brandon Herrera. I am running for Congress for Texas District 23 against Tony Gonzalez. I figured somebody had to do it.
And he'll be here a week from today. And I want to thank 9:30 a.m. The Answer radio station for helping us. Thank you, Chad. And Talk Law Radio with, hold on. I got too much going on here. I can't remember. Todd? Oh, I got it. Todd, would you introduce yourself, please?
Talk Law Radio with Todd Marquardt, where I talk about the law on the radio.
And Chad, would you introduce yourself also, please?
Sure. I'm Chad Gammage. I'm the general manager for Salem Media Group here in San Antonio, 9:30 a.m. The Answer. And we are pleased to be here. Thank you so much for your attendance.
Thank you, Chad. And with that, we'll take a 15-minute break. And I think the bartenders can hear me. And if anybody wants a drink, please just give it to them. And if somebody wants to make a donation for the cocktail, please do so. Otherwise, it's on the house tonight. We'll reconvene in about 15 minutes. Thank you very much. I forgot to mention the whole project. Her name is Hannah McManus, my wife, and she has been incredibly supportive and very, very helpful. Thank you, Hannah. This is the 5-minute warning, not the 2-minute warning. Get on back to their home. It doesn't cost you as much. So 5 minutes.
Moderators to the table, please. Moderators to the table, please. Thank you.
Robert Flores, could you come up to the stage, please? Yeah, this is a stage. Mike. Okay, folks, 5 minutes up. I want to make an introduction here. Lars is going to have a minute or two to and why he's running for county chair. Here you go, Robert.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you very much for all that you've done. Thank you to each one of you for being here tonight. It's a great feeling to be in front of a room full of Texas patriots that love God, that love the Constitution, love our state.
Hello, folks. Please show some respect here. And you don't have to sit down, but please listen.
My name is Robert Flores. I'm a candidate for county chair of the Republican Party. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for that applause. Some of y'all I've known for a very, very long time. Some of y'all, most don't even know who I am. I've been actively involved with the Republican Party for, like Ms. Denman says, a very long time. I met Ms. Denman when I was doing advanced work, Pat Robertson for president. That's how far back I go. And I've been the precinct chair. I have served on the SREC. I have raised money for the party, local candidates, state candidates, and federal candidates. I am seeking this position because I really, truly have a passion to be able to get our message out, our message of conservative values, our message of togetherness, of unity, but yet our message of being able to overcome the left-wing liberal ideology that's happening each and every day in front of our faces, and I've had enough. You've had enough. We need a local party that can be able to raise money to be able to equip the grassroots. The grassroots are each one of y'all in this room. The grassroots are the precinct chairs. The precinct chairs are the ones that get out the vote. The precinct chairs need to be equipped with the proper walking list, the proper voting list. They need that to get out the vote to support each one of our candidates, our conservative candidates, to send them to the courthouse, to the state house, and to the federal house. That's what we need. That's what I plan to do, and that's what I would deliver for the Bexar County Republican Party. Go to my website, electrobertflores.com, and one last thing, I'm the last name on the ballot. Thank you very much.
Okay, Robert, I have a question for you. As the current chair of the Republican Party of Bexar County, I know that my executive administrator and also our primary election administrator have been tirelessly developing walking lists and contact lists for the candidates as they call into us. Are you saying you're going to change that or not doing that, and you will now? Okay.
Enhance what you've done, enhance to make everyone's job not easier, but more effective to be able to get the vote out. That's what counts, right?
Well, I will agree with you on. Let me say, I hit mute again. No, I didn't. Critical that we get out. Dean and I are working on a program here where we're going to set a challenge and a Cesario, mute button. And we're going to have, that's one of our next projects, is to complete a program that we will be using to get the vote out. Because we have plenty of registered voters. The problem is the voters are not coming out to vote. So we need to make that happen and get people to the polls. If we could just increase our current number that actually vote, we're going to win elections. We will. But if we don't do that, we're still going to be playing second fiddle in the orchestra of politics. So with that, Michael Champion, would you please come up? And Mark LaHood, please come on up. And I will be turning this program over to our moderators. And this is your bottle. That's your bottle.
Right.
Where's Mark LaHood? Where's Mark LaHood? Okay, where's Waldo? I'm kidding. Here he is. He's always coming up behind me. What? Okay. Joe Garza is constantly having me be a promoter and do something that I didn't anticipate doing. Well, we have a program in our party for where we are asking people to be sustaining members. And what a sustaining member is a member that contributes on a regular monthly basis or a regular annual basis and only contributes for the purpose of keeping our lights on and the doors unlocked. We will be responsible and are responsible for raising funds for events like this. But we can't do this if our door gets locked and our lights get turned off. So in that concept, we have pins, depending on the level of everybody's gift, that Joe Garza designed, and I think are fabulous. And people will be able to wear these with pride on their lapel at the CEC meetings and at future Republican Party events. So thank you very much, Joe, for what you've done. Oh, yep. By the way, there's a over here, the Republican Party of Bexar, where you can sign up as a sustaining member. And that's all I'm going to say now. Thank you, Michael, and thank you, Mark, and you moderators. I'm out of here.
Hello. Thank you, Jeff. Gentlemen, good evening. How are you? Let's get ready to rumble here, yes?
Good evening.
Just kidding. Just kidding. Nice debate we're going to have. Anyways, we have here Mark LaHood and Michael Champion, who are running for Texas House District 121. As you notice, the third chair is empty. The incumbent was not able to make it tonight, or didn't make it tonight. So we proceed with these two gentlemen. So, gentlemen, let me give you just the rules. You'll each have 2 minutes to begin, to introduce yourselves and why you're running. And we will then ask you a question. You have 1 minute to answer that question, all right? If there is a rebuttal, you'll have 1 minute to rebuttal. And we go back and then we go to the next question, which my colleague Ken is going to be asking. All right? So we're good? So let's get things started. Mr. LaHood, would you like to begin? You have 2 minutes.
Hey, good evening. Good evening. How y'all doing? My name is Mark LaHood, and I'm running for House District 121. And I couldn't make this up, but the last 48 hours have been extremely stressful, right? I almost didn't make it tonight. I had a case that got reset without my knowledge. So I was flying to Sangamon County, Illinois. And I jumped through hoops. I moved mountains. I charmed, fought, used logic to do everything I could to make sure I didn't miss tonight. Because the greatest danger to our party, in my humble opinion, is not Democrats. It's not vetting the people that we are electing. And so this race is about principles. And I want to bring back traditional conservative principles and leaderships back to the House. And I have 3 priorities when we get to the House. First and foremost is some real border security. And that's not just a campaign slogan. We needed something about it, right? We need to work together, and that's what's killed us, is the House is where bills go to die. We have 85 Republican members in the House, and it's dying. We need real legislation to work with the governor, to fund it, to secure it, and hold people accountable. That's issue number 1. Issue number 2 is election integrity. And that, again, is something of vital importance. Because if we lose faith in the power of the vote, what is our recourse? Armed revolution, right? Which isn't pretty, but can be necessary. We need to strengthen our voter laws. We need to strengthen and empower our AG to have the ability to enforce election fraud. Because right now, Soros DAs aren't doing it. So that's number 2. And number 3 is freedom, empowerment. Oh, sorry, my time? Sorry. The last one is we need to empower parents. We need to enable real school choice, because it's not the education, it's not the government that's in power, it's us. And we are the ones that are in control of our children. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. LaHood. Okay, Mr. Champion.
Good evening, everybody. This is the next episode of the Mark and Mike show. And I am not Chip Roy, okay? Just want to remind you, not Chip Roy. All right. I do. Well, I will tell you, I looked like this before Chip Roy looked like this. So next time you see him, tell him he's got to I've got a trademark on that. So anyway, my name is Mike Champion. I'm running also for the State Rep District 121 seat. And honestly, I had a group of people come to me when this was all being churned up. So I'm kind of like the how shall I say it? I'm the guy on the outside. Okay, I'm a retired military guy. Served my 20 plus years in the Army. I also spent another 15 years in the Texas State Guard. And so what I bring to the table is I've got a lot of leadership experience. And I think what the biggest thing that they need up in Austin right now is leadership, because we have people running all over the place telling us they're going to do something and they don't. I mean, everybody knows who we're talking about. And so I've got that. And the other thing is I'm a PA. Anybody see PAs? Is that who they see for their medical care? Okay, I'm one of those guys, okay? But I did that in the Army as well. and spent a lot of time traveling the world. And so I've seen a lot of things. I've lived in a lot of places that I think would be germane to Texas in terms of implementing as policies. And I'll get into that a lot more later. But if you go to my website, you can read all about it. It's champion4 Texas. So go to that. And then what else? I also teach college at the doctoral level. So I've taught at a couple of different
10
universities.
seconds.
10 seconds. Okay, well, that's great. So anyway, just remember, I am on the ballot, not Chip Roy, okay? So just remember that. Thank you.
Thank you. And, I'm so sorry because I'm trying to do signals. You guys can't see me, So I'll have to, do a little interrupting. So I apologize beforehand. By the way, I'm Mimi Planis. I forgot to introduce myself. How rude. I'm going to be one of your moderators tonight, along with
Ken Morales. I'm a precinct chair. Glad to be here.
Yes.
Welcome, gentlemen.
Okay. So let's get to it, gentlemen. So this past legislative session was one of the most continuous sessions in recent history, resulting in several special sessions and now a heated primary. First question goes to Mr. LaHood. There is a constitutional amendment that places a limit on the annual state budget. Do you believe that we would or should continue to ignore the limitations and pass constitutional amendments that are allowed and placed outside of the limitations? You have 1 minute.
No, this goes back to what we're talking about traditional principles, right? Fiscal responsibility. The problem is is government treats the money like it's someone else's money, right? But they're no different than us. I mean, my analogy is that the government is an extension of the family, whether it's the head of the household, the border, whatever it is. And so answer your question is this: we need to curtail it. We need to rein it in. We have limits for a reason, but they're worthless if we're just talking. And so we need people that are going to go out there and actually enforce it, because here's the other problem that's pragmatic. It's human nature, right? When you have money to spend, it takes a lot of self-discipline to not spend it, because you have a lot of people coming at you. And so we need the courage to do that.
Thank you very much. Next question, Mr. Champion. Speaker Dade Phelan and some of the other House Republicans are in favor of retaining the tradition of having members of the opposite party chair key committees. If elected, do you support the Speaker on this issue, or will you support a House rule that would end the practice of awarding committee chairmanships to Democrats? And if so, why or why not? You have 1 minute.
Well, thank you for that question. That's a really good one. No, if the Republicans are in control of the House or the Senate, they don't need to be given out committee assignments or chairmanships to the opposite party. Do you think they're going to do that if, God forbid, they ever come back into power? They're not going to do that. They're going to laugh at us for being so stupid. So no, I don't support the Speaker for any of that. I think it should be just the opposite.
We're back. Okay. All right. Mr. LaHood, this question's for you. What is your opinion of the current Speaker's leadership of the House? And if elected, will you vote for him to continue as Speaker in the next legislative session, or do you have another candidate?
So the problem we have right now, from what I understand, is this: out of the 150 state reps, 85 of them on paper are Republican, but we can't get unanimity, whatever, where we're all agreeing. So what ends up happening is a select number are colluding with Democrats to pick the chair. And so that's what we're dealing with right now. And so it goes back to the last question. I meant, in what world would it be smart to shoot ourselves in the foot? What world would it be? How is that smart? I mean, politics aside, to work against yourself, to work against your ideals, about your principles and your goals. So no, I'm against that. I would support Mark DeRazio.
Mark, he just threw that out there, my friend. So get some yard signs made up quickly. All right, guys. So those were the easy warm-up questions. You see, here my friend Ken is in charge of the heavy-duty questions now. So I'll turn it over to Ken. Thanks.
Thank you, Mimi. All right, then we're going to move to education. A clear majority of Texans, over 51%, say they support school choice program in Texas. This appeared to be the legislative session where school choice would become a reality in our state. But in the end, of course, we all know it failed. The question is, first to Michael. Last session, several Republicans voted against school choice and actively fought against school choice advocates. If elected, will you support or oppose school choice legislation if it comes before the, once again, before the legislature? Why or why not?
Simple answer, yes, I support choice, school choice, okay? I would vote against the 21 Republicans who decided to join with the Democrats and get them out of power at some point. And I guess we're doing that tonight. So anyway.
Okay, Mr. LaHood. Mark, there have been many variations of school choice that have been proposed. Do you believe that the voucher system is the most appropriate and fair process that best serves taxpayers? If not, which system would you propose to give parents the school choice polls show that they want?
Yeah. So my understanding is, you can call it whatever you want, but it's essentially the same thing. Education savings account is the latest iteration, and I support that wholeheartedly. I mean, the reality is this, it comes back to the question of, does the money belong to the system to be used or abused, or does the money belong to the child that's actually there in the system? And so with the education savings account, the money truly follows the child. And more importantly, the money is used not just for schools. It could be used for approved programs, tutoring, books, transportation. I mean, ESAs, there's a myth that it's there for the wealthy. It's truly helps those that are impoverished and need the financial assistance, that want an option for their children.
5 seconds.
All right, very good. Mr. Champion, question on education. Many Republicans who opposed school choice this last session also accepted endorsements and campaign contributions from teachers' unions like the American Federation of Teachers, who primarily back Democrats and left-leaning causes. If elected, will you accept or reject the endorsement and financial support of teachers' unions and other groups that oppose school choice?
The answer is I don't take any big PAC money as it is. I don't support taking that kind of money, okay? So I don't owe them anything, okay? Now, when we're talking about rank and file teachers, I'm right there with them. The teachers unions, they buy too many politicians, and no, I don't support any of that.
Very good.
Okay, let's move on to another topic. A fun one. Corruption and weaponization. Fun stuff, right? All right. Many Texans have lost faith in our institutions, and it seems to get worse every day. Many people believe our institutions are corrupt, not working on behalf of the people, and have been weaponized against political opponents. So my first question goes to Mr. LaHood. To help restore trust with voters, would you support a bill that would establish term limits for legislators and laws that would limit legislators' ability to lobby after serving office? Why or why not? And do you have any proposals that would help restore voters' faith in our state government?
Good question. So term limits is one of those double-edged questions, right? Because on one hand, limiting somebody who's getting comfortable with power, too comfortable with power, abusing it, is an obvious positive. On the flip side, there's always a learning curve when you have someone new coming in. And so there's a balancing act between where you're saying, what is that actual term limit and what should it be? I am in favor of limits, I've heard proposals of 4 years. I don't think that is long enough for someone to get their feet wet, learn the system, build relationships, and be productive. I don't have an actual definite number. I would think probably 4 terms, maybe 5. 10-year, I mean, tenure is a common term for a reason, but we want to ensure that we are actually being productive and effective. I mean, again, back to the lip service, saying what people want to hear, but not actually getting results is not going to do anything for us. What was the second part of the question? It
The
was
second part of the question is, and do you have any proposals that would help restore voters' faith in state government? And you've got 10 seconds.
Okay. The best way to promote trust is to actually deliver what we promise. And then if we fire the people who don't deliver, they would actually do it. So if I don't deliver my promise, fire me and put someone that does.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. LaHood. All right, Mr. Champion, do you agree or disagree with the impeachment charges that were brought against Attorney General Ken Paxton? Do you agree or disagree with how it was conducted? And if you had been in the legislature, how would you have voted?
Well, generally, I opposed the whole impeachment. Okay. The problem we had was he got like a 15-minute trial and didn't get to defend himself. That's not the Texas way. Okay. We don't do that. So just as a general comment, I would say I'm totally against it. Now, if they want to bring it back and actually have a trial and go through all the processes and all that, that's their right to do. But until they recognize what their duty is under the Constitution of Texas, no, I don't support it.
Thank you. Mr. LaHood, under current state law, political subdivisions, including the city of San Antonio and Bexar County, spend funds to hire lobbyists for the purpose of supporting or opposing measures under consideration by the state legislature. If elected, would you support legislation to abolish all forms of taxpayer-funded lobbying?
Yes. I meant that comes back to the principles of the party itself. I meant we have to actually adhere to what we say we believe. And that is one of the biggest cancers to it.
Thank you.
All right, now we're moving on to a topic everybody is, I'm sure, very aware of and concerned about: immigration. And I will say we're moving at a very nice clip. So although we're directing the questions to individuals, if you have something to add to what your opponent said, you feel free to. So let me start. Under President Biden, there have been more than 8 million people who have crossed the border illegally in just 3 years that he's been in office. That total doesn't account for all of the people that were not intercepted and recorded, so the actual figure is surely much higher. And to put that 8 million figure into perspective, that is larger than the total population of 38 states. We all agree that we have a crisis at our border. So, Mr. Champion, this question is to you. If you were in office, what measures and legislation would you have sponsored or supported to address the crisis at the border?
Number one, being an old military guy, I would put the whole National Guard down on the border. Put them down there, string razor wire, do whatever you got to do to stop it. Number two is that we need to go after the companies who are actually facilitating the invasion of this state. So if everybody's conduct business in Texas. Why are we not allowing the Secretary of State and the Attorney General to go after companies? They don't have to take it right away. They might just fine them and say, let's not do this anymore, guys, because it's not legal. Because now we've got this new bill where you're criminally liable for entering the state of Texas, not the United States, but the state of Texas. So I would do those two things right now. And how come it's taken them 3 years to get there?
And then, can I add to that real briefly?
You'll have 30 seconds.
Okay. And that was a great answer, but one of the issues is this. I'm a criminal defense attorney. My practice is deconstructing statutes and figuring out where they're flawed. Senate Bill 4, in my humble opinion, it makes it a misdemeanor for them to come across once, second time a second degree felony, but if they voluntarily leave, the charge gets dismissed. And so we need more teeth in our laws to empower our law enforcement, because all of that is worthless if we don't have the laws in place to actually enforce it.
That's time. Thank you.
Yeah, my next question was to you, Mark, about Senate Bill 4. So do you support Senate Bill 4, which will allow our state to arrest and return illegal immigrants to the country from which they cross, or their country of origin? And do you want to add to anything you said there about Senate Bill 4?
Yeah, no, just that it potentially rewards the behavior. And I'm a firm believer, it's no different than our kids, right? If someone does something and they aren't held accountable for it, where's the deterrence? We need more teeth into it.
Very good. Did you want to say something, Mike?
Yeah, I want to just add to that. So SB4, there's a whole lot of literature that's been coming to my mailbox lately about how they're breaking their arms, patting themselves on the back for passing SB4. What is the end game for SB4? I mean, what happens when we fill up the jails in all the local counties? They're going to get turned right back over to Border Patrol. So we've spent all that time and money essentially doing what would have happened in the first place.
Okay. The next question will go to you, Michael. Do you agree or disagree that Texas should immediately deny all taxpayer-funded services and subsidies to illegal aliens, including the tax dollars going to the migrant center on San Pedro?
That's an easy one. Yeah, they shouldn't be getting any money at all. They're here illegally. I mean, if they came in the right way, then I wouldn't have a problem with it. But if you're going to basically invade the state, we shouldn't be responsible for any of that. Okay.
All right, the next question will go to Mr. LaHood. The conflict between the Washington swamp and Governor Abbott is increasing in severity, and as we all know, and the Biden administration is actively working against its own citizens by removing the border security measures that Governor Abbott has put into place. Do you support the actions of our governor? And if elected, how will you help Governor Abbott secure the border?
So for the last 6 months, I've been saying our founding fathers, they didn't have their power taken. They gave the power to the federal government, and they didn't give them limited power on the premise that once I give you immigration and security of our borders, that if you fail at it, I've given up my right to self-defense, to protect my family, protect my home. I 100%, I'm glad he did it. Needs to not stand down, not stand back. And the way that we can continue to protect them is to make sure our AG, which is fighting our battles, isn't jammed up fighting battles at home.
All right, thank you. All right, so we're moving along rather quickly. Very good. Thank you guys for adhering to the time. Appreciate it. I'm sure everybody here appreciates it too. They'll be here all night, folks, so you can get with them after the debate. Okay, election integrity. Just a couple questions here, guys. A constitutional republic is dependent and transparent and trustworthy elections. It's required that people believe their vote matters. The belief is deteriorating. In Texas, there are concerns regarding the validity and transparency of our election process. This goes from internet access to our voting machines, equipment failure, inadequate supplies at polling stations, failure to allow laws and follow laws and regulations, mail-in ballots being harvested, failure to prosecute lawbreakers, and failure to monitor the election locations by election administrators. So that's quite a lot. First question is going to be going to, let's see who was last. You were last. Michael. Okay, Michael. Who do we address this to? How do we address this issue? How do we restore public trust in our elections? And what changes would you be advocating for?
Voter ID. Okay. I mean, that's obvious. And paper ballot. Okay, got to have that. Now, I still support having, a week to get in to get the vote because some people can't get off on Tuesdays because they're working. So I want their votes in there. But we also need to, how do people get registered to vote? Okay, now we got that motor vote been around forever and ever. If you go in and get a DMV license and somebody is not supposed to be getting a license, the clerk who gives that needs to be punished. I think we had that happen a few years ago where a gal was basically selling driver's licenses on the side and she got 3 years in jail. I think it needs to be a lot tougher than that. It needs to be at least 10 years. And you lose any pension that you might have coming. Well, you're right, it should be a felony. But unfortunately, that got changed last time. So we need to get that back in order as well.
Thank you, Mr. Champion. Okay, Mr. LaHood, will you give priority to addressing this issue by adopting bills that will establish one set of laws and rules that apply equally to early voting and election day voting? I'll repeat the question.
I'm sorry, yeah, I'm confused.
Will you give priority to addressing this issue, election issue, by adopting bills that will establish just one set of laws and rules that apply equally to early voting and election day voting?
Oh, you mean keeping early voting and election day consistent?
Consistent.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, look, I've already said it. The border is important, our education is important, but without the faith in the vote, our republic's dead, right? And without the actual vote, we're not going to be able to go forward and help forge and create stronger republic and protecting conservative principles. So yes, it's a priority. We want consistency because I'm a common sense person. Take away their argument before they can get it. Well, it's all the same. Okay, what's your argument now, right? Because the law in the books now talks about intentionally knowing whether or not you should have known and would have known, all that weakness on it. Take it away, make it straightforward, consistent. But, and I can't stress this enough, we need to expand the voter fraud law to hold more people accountable for a side of a slew of things. And, call me crazy, but there is no greater crime for the republic than stealing an election. And we can't harp that enough.
Thank you, Mr. LaHood.
Great. Our final subject tonight has to do with the cultural divide in our country. As we all know, America is more divided than ever. We're in a tug of war culturally and ideologically. The BLM movement gave birth to a new wave of cultural Marxism that has reinvigorated racial and class tensions. We've also had a moral breakdown on subjects like sexuality and gender, where many American progressives are even unable to say, what is a woman? There has been outrage around the country related to these ideas being snuck into our educational institutions, federal agencies, including the military, and our corporate culture. So, Mr. LaHood, or is it Mr. Mike? Let's go to Michael Champion. Last session, pro-DEI legislation was introduced by a Republican in the legislature. What is your opinion of DEI? You may want to explain it here to the audience. And do you believe it has any place in our government and our institutions and corporations?
DEI is DEAD. It needs to be removed at all levels of education, government, anything else, the military too, for that matter. And it needs to be done now.
Can I add to that just briefly? So the reason why it's so dangerous is diversity, equity, and inclusion is the modern day incarnation of this Marxist ideology where we separate on gender, on class, on sexual orientation. There's no coincidence that if you Google Planned Parenthood or all these socialist organizations top, on their mission page or on their about page, they proclaim how great DEI is. DEI is a way to get to our kids. But the other thing, the problem with DEI is it takes away the merit system. I don't want someone that's going to come rescue me because they filled a slot. I want the best person for the job who earned it. So it's a twofold attack. while we have to fight it, it has no business in there.
Thank you, Mr. Hood. No, you're good. You're good. All righty.
One more question. All right, Mark, last session, Governor Abbott signed legislation into law that bans transgender women, who are in fact biological males, from competing in college sports, adding to existing laws that require high school athletes to participate in sports teams that match the sex they were assigned at birth. He also signed into law a bill that bars transgender kids from getting puberty blockers and hormone therapies. Do you agree or disagree with these laws, including the issue of trans identifying individuals going into dressing rooms that are the opposite of their biological sex? Why or why not? Maybe you want to expand on the subject.
So it sounded like two separate questions. So one, I'm in support of banning it. I mean, the reality is this, and this is my logic on it. If we tell people that a 10-year-old or a 12-year-old is able to make decisions long-term about their sexuality, how does that make sense at 10 or 12? I mean, we tell everyone that 17 or 18, that's the age you can join the military or vote or get a tattoo or buy cigarettes, babysit, have sex. And so it makes no sense that we would try to falsely empower a child and sexualize the child. So answer question number one is, yes, I am in support of that legislation. The second question, I believe, was, it was like the inverse of it.
It was, do you agree or disagree with the law, including the trans identifying individuals going to dressing rooms of the opposite?
Yeah, no, I mean,
opposite sex.
Common sense again. In what world would we want our daughters walking into a dressing room, a bathroom, where there's a man with a penis in there?
10 seconds.
I mean, that's the reality of it. I mean, I don't want that.
Yeah, let me just add to that. I have 2 daughters and 1 granddaughter. And has anybody heard of the tooth fairy? Everybody's heard of the tooth fairy? Well, I would become the tooth fairy if they did that to my daughters or my granddaughter in there, and they'd be getting more than a quarter for their teeth. So anyway, that's how I look at it. No, it's absolutely insane. It's just insane.
Thank you, Mr. Champion.
Thank you both.
All right. So thank you very much, gentlemen, for your time. We're going to do closing statements now, and we're going to do it in the reverse. So, Mr. Champion, you have 2 minutes for a closing statement.
Well, everybody, again, not Chipperoy, but close. So anyway, what I want you to do is go to my website, www.championfortexas.com, and take a look at it. I've already addressed a lot of the issues we talked about tonight on there. So again, I'm just trying to do my part. I've always been a servant leader in my time, and I would like to continue that. And the other thing is, you have to stand by for the next episode of Mark and Mike.
Thank you, Mr. Champion. Okay, but you do look like Chip Roy. We can all see it.
You're better looking.
That's your tagline. Okay, Mark, Mr. LaHood.
No, I mean, we've already hit on it, right? This race is about principles. What we say and what we really believe, what we say and what really matters to us. That's it, right? And so we are running, and I like Mike, and we're basically running on the same platform, to be honest with you. But we're running to bring back traditional conservative principles and leadership to this house. And so the question we have to ask ourselves is this: are we happy with the voting record of the current incumbent? And if we're not, then we need to get out and spread the word and vote. Because the reality is this: before I ran, everyone said, don't run. You're too conservative for 121. Don't run. Steve is too powerful. Don't run. He's too well liked. You're going to lose. Well, I ran because sometimes in life, there's something more important than taking an easy option. There's nothing more important than this. And so I ask you to get out and vote. Tell your friends, get them to vote, because we are going to win this election. Thank you, and God bless.
Thank you. This is the end of our last debate. Thank you, gentlemen. Jeff?
Okay, we got a little spare time here, guys. Don't desert the stage. I'm going to do something that really wasn't going to be allowed because we thought we wouldn't have time, and also we didn't want anybody to be surprised with their questions. Is there anybody in the audience that has a question for either one of these two gentlemen? Line up. Oh, here she goes again. Okay, Dina, take control. Come on, darling.
Yeah, just line up here. Here we go.
Okay. Now, keep it short. No
Why
statement.
should we not vote for Steve Allison? What is the problem with Steve Allison? Why he's been our incumbent? Why should we not vote for him?
I'm not going to, only because I don't want individuals to get into a negative statement here. Okay, overruled. Go ahead. Okay, guys. Okay, Mike, you first.
Let me answer. I'm not going to attack Steve. What I'm going to do is say I would do things a lot differently. Okay, I wouldn't be voting against school choice. I wouldn't be voting for the current speaker. I wouldn't be letting them have an open bar during work hours. I mean, if I get fired if that happened. So there's a lot of things I wouldn't do, and I mean the list is long. So I'm not going to take up all your time, but the answer is it's pretty much 90% of what he has done I wouldn't be doing. So
mine's going deeper.
Mark, you got any comments?
Factual. The reason why I entered the race is Steve did 4 things when I looked at his record. Initially, Steve voted to impeach, which usurped the power of the voters, right? The AG was just reelected in a tens of $1 million contested primary. We don't remove people because we don't like them personally. That's what Democrats do. Issue number 1. Issue number 2, Steve drafted a bill that would have forced in schools. Issue number 3, Steve is the drafter of the bill that reduced election fraud from a felony to misdemeanor. And number 4, of the list of the 85 Republican reps, he's the second most liberal voting. And those are all facts. You can look that all up. That's not.
Thank you.
My question's concerning school choice and school vouchers. How would you handle homeschoolers? Are you going to require them to be testing their students like the public schools do?
So that's a great question. So homeschool has been a long fight, and they actually have a lot more freedom and less regulation in a lot of ways than charter schools, private schools. And so I don't believe in reinventing the wheel on the standards that are in place, because from what I've read, homeschoolers have a higher attrition rate, higher success in going to college. So what they're doing is working. Now, what they need to be able to do is apply that money to the homeschool, if that's the choice of the family.
Whoops. Are we on? Yeah, there we are. The homeschoolers is a very special group of folks. They're very motivated, and I've talked to a couple of them in my pursuit here for this position. And yeah, I think they should get the money just like everybody else is going to get the money to go, whether you want to go to Catholic school, you go stay at public school, or whatever school you're going to go to. They need the money too for their expenses just as much as everybody else does.
Go ahead, Patrick.
Howdy, gentlemen. Patrick Von Dolan. Thank you for stepping up to run. Appreciate you running for office and for HG 121. Question is, what have you done so far as a private citizen to help advance the legislation in the State House of Representatives or at Republican Party of Texas, or to pass legislation that is with conservative values?
First, okay. Yeah, he did. He did. So he's walking away. Come back. Come back. I need you to kind of bring that question back up again.
The premise of the question is, we appreciate you running for office and stepping up. It takes a lot of effort, as we know. What have you done as a private citizen to advance conservative legislation and principles in the state legislature as a private citizen before running for office?
Well, that's an easy one. I probably burned up 2 computers writing emails to legislators, the governor, the AG, just giving them my little hints on things I would do differently. So I've been very involved with that sort of thing. What was the other part of your question? That was it. Okay, just a private citizen. And I vote in every election. So there you go.
Yeah, I'm living proof of what's wrong with the system, right? I've been saying it since I ran for DA, that I voted since I was 18, never missed an election, and I was proud that I did my civic duty. And I never went to groups, I never got involved, I never took that next step because I thought voting was all it was. And so to answer your question is, prior to waking up a year and a half ago, I hadn't. And so what I've done to try and advance it is fight for what I believe, to actually make changes. And that's where I'm at right now.
Okay, I ran for county chair and won, and we're here tonight. Thank you.
My wife had an interesting question, and she asked me to come up here and present it to you. So she wanted to know, as part of the Texas state legislators, what can we do to discourage or to expel the Mexican mafia?
Hire the banditos.
So, unfortunately, criminal element has been around since man has been. And so it is sadly going to be a never-ending battle until God calls us home when we're in heaven. The only thing we can do is we have to get our law enforcement on par, right? So that comes where legislatures are passing bills that will remove or at least allow the AG to come in and prosecute if local law enforcement's not. But then the second problem, we have this cancer that's infecting us. We have our local sheriff who's more concerned about being in front of a camera than actually enforcing laws. And so that hurts us, number 1 and 2. And then number 3 is we have to have good laws on the books. And then 4, we need to fund all of those things. And so number 5, most importantly of all, we have to get an informed voter. Small population votes, we don't know what's going on, we don't care. And we need to get the message out. We need to get people engaged. We got to get people to stop being like me that voted and think, oh, I did my job. We need to be proactive and aggressive.
The biggest obstacle to what you're referring to, I think, is we have to have a DA that's actually going to press and enforce the law. Okay. Now, I don't know why they didn't elect him last time. Then I wouldn't have to be up here with them. Okay. But yeah, it comes down to the DA and the sheriff's department and city, all of the minions of different legislators within the county and the state as well. So, but for us, the strong thing would be get a good DA who's going to enforce the law.
Okay, one more, and then if anybody has okay, Dina, okay, 2 more, 3 more, because I like you guys. 4 more? No, I don't think so. Anybody that has a wine glass, while they're asking these questions and answering them, I'll walk around, and if you could hand them to me, because they are personal property and I want to get them back into the box. Okay, go ahead.
Hi, so as a young conservative living here in Bexar County, putting down my roots with my family, I just want to hear both of your take on what you see the future of Bexar County looking like if one of you were elected into this position.
How do I see Bexar County in the future? Basically your future. So what I want is a good, stable economy. I want good jobs here. Want good resources, and that means we have to have good electrical grid power. We need to have good natural gas delivery. We need to have all kinds of things, but only by working on improving the infrastructure and some of the other programs, like for some of the colleges and things, it's going to make your future a little bit brighter.
So the state rep isn't making policies just for this local area, but it's going to ultimately affect it. And it's going to be the same way that we already talked about. The problems I believe plaguing Bear County and specifically our youth is education, power and parenting, law enforcement, security, and then I don't know if you're paying taxes yet, but taxes, right? Inflation. And so the best way that we can make an improvement, and unfortunately, I don't think there's any quick solutions in life, and I'm not looking at you saying, if you elect me, it's going to happen overnight. It's a slow, arduous process, but those are the things we have to tackle. And education is key because, and I've been saying it from day one, thank you for being here, but the children of today are the voters of tomorrow and the leaders of tomorrow. So thank you.
I guess I'm allowed to ask a question too. So I've been a volunteer for the Republican Party of Bear County for a long time. I think 2008. I've worked for 4 administrations, and I really care deeply about this party. I'm sure everyone does, but I want to make sure that who we elect will support the local party. And I have witnessed with my own eyes people getting elected. We work really hard for them, and then they won't even answer a phone call. So I want a commitment tonight that you, if you get elected, you will support the local party with your emotion, your physical body, and hopefully finances.
The answer to your question is yes. I've been a precinct chair, as you all know. So I'm in underneath the skin of Bear County GOP. So I hope to continue to do that.
Yep. Yes. And that's something that I think everyone needs to hold people accountable for, not just the party, but people get to a position and then they turn their back. It's no different than making promises and not delivering it. And so the way that we address that is electing people with the integrity and the principles and the values to actually remember who is their ally, why they're allies, and also helping them help others to help others in the battle for it. So yes.
Again, thank you for running and stepping up. I know this is a big deal for you and your families. I've contacted Mr. Allison on several issues, and especially school choice. He says, well, our district is changing. There are, different demographics. More people are what are you seeing as you're out there campaigning? Do you feel it's changing or?
So I've personally hit a little over 850 doors, give or take. Our campaigns hit thousands, 10,000, 9,000, a lot of doors. What we're seeing consistently, overwhelmingly, I don't have the exact number, but it's far more than 50% in 121 want school choice. The other thing I found, and I did the same thing when I went for DA, when I'm talking to Democrats, overwhelmingly, if you don't say school choice, but if you say, hey, do you love your kids? Do you want what's best for your children? If your children were in a school and they weren't getting the best education that they needed, would you want the ability to take them and put them in a situation where they can thrive? Well, hell yes, I do. Everyone wants it if we take the propaganda because they're lying to us. Everyone wants it. The only ones who don't are the ones that are greasing their wheels, the unions and the people that are taking the money in the back end because they want that power grab. And those are the ones that are against it.
Would you repeat the question for me?
Oh, just that Mr. Allison says the district is kind of changing as far as demographics, more Democrats in the area, and especially with school choice. He said more people didn't want school choice, even though there was a poll that says we did.
Yeah, I think that's one of those issues that crosses party lines. I think the people I've talked to in my campaigning is that school choice is overwhelmingly wanted by those folks. And it doesn't matter if you're a Democrat or Republican. I think everybody wants the best for their kids. And that's the way they are looking at it, not as a we need to support the school unions and all the rest of that stuff. So that's actually pretty low on the totem pole for most people, but they do want good education for their kids.
With that, thank you very much. Our moderators greatly appreciated. Our candidates greatly appreciated. The audience and attendees greatly appreciated. And the Republican Party, okay, there is one more question, but I'll finish my section and then you can ask the question. When he's through, we're through. Okay? So I just want to thank everybody that has helped this fundraiser for the party. As you know, this party was in conjunction, this event, excuse me, not this party, we did have a party. This event is in conjunction with the Republican Party of Texas. And we will be sharing with them the gain that we have tonight's event. And most of the cost has already been covered. So most of the dollars that you spent being here are going to go to the Republican Party of Bexar County and the Party of Texas. So thank you very much. And then I know work that, oh, I know one other thing. Tacos are available in the back after this question. Tours we overbought, so they're on sale.
Here's one thing that came up at the first question. You all are running for Texas House Representative 121. You represent the voters, right? If you were doing a good job, would you not have broken your neck trying to get here? Right? So again, if he had a worthy platform to be on, to gloat about, he would have been here. The 14 amendments we voted on and they all passed. Every one of those were in the state budget. I got to talk to a controller. The reason why they gave us $1 back of the 3 we overpaid. Will you help guard and keep the funds coming back to the people that were overcharged? When one of you get in?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, that's a no-brainer.
Thank you very much.